Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Sometimes I'm just scrolling through TikTok and something, I don't know, just catches my eye and I think, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So that's what happened with today's topic.
Oh, what is it?
It's those little glucometers you see everywhere.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
blood sugar checkers.
Exactly. And the reason I wanted to do this one is actually because of a group called Healthy Sphere. They reached out and were basically like, hey, we love what you do, making these complex health things understandable. And, I thought that's really what we try to do here.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, this deep dive is all about how these little devices work, for anyone who sees them and is like, how does that even work?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the blood.
Right.
Like, it's such a tiny little drop.
It's amazing how much information you can get from one little, pinprick, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that single drop can tell you so much about what's going on in your body.
And it's all thanks to those little test strips.
Oh, yeah, the test strips are where the magic happens. They're actually incredibly sophisticated pieces of technology.
So there's more to it than meets the eye.
Way more. Did you know that each test strip is coated with special enzymes?
Enzymes, like the stuff we learned about in high school bio.
Exactly. Except these enzymes are specifically designed to react with the glucose in your blood. You've got glucose oxidase, or sometimes glucose dehydrogenase.
And what do those do exactly?
Well, those enzymes react with the glucose, and that reaction triggers another reaction that involves these things called mediators.
Mediators, okay.
And the coolest part, this chain reaction actually creates a tiny electrical current.
Oh, wait, so it's like a tiny little battery in there.
It kind of is, and that's where the glucometer comes in.
Right, reads that signal. Right.
Exactly. It measures the strength of that current, and then based on that, it calculates your blood sugar level and displays it on the screen.
That is so cool. So basically, the more glucose you have in your blood, the stronger that electrical signal, the higher your blood sugar reading.
Exactly.
Wow. I was thinking about why this is so relevant, especially with all these glucometers popping up on TikTok. It seems like people are really starting to pay more attention to their blood sugar.
It's true, and that's a good thing, because with that information, you can start to make some really informed decisions about your health.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, for starters, by regularly checking your blood sugar, you can see how your body reacts to different foods.
Oh, that makes sense. You can see how eating a donut spikes your blood sugar compared to a salad or something.
Exactly. And that can be super helpful for people who are trying to manage their weight, or maybe even conditions like prediabetes or diabetes.
Right, or just for anyone who wants to understand their body better.
Totally. And then there's exercise. You can see how physical activity impacts your blood sugar levels as well. And even stress.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, stress hormones can actually cause your blood sugar to rise. So by monitoring those levels, you can maybe start to identify those triggers and find healthier ways to manage stress.
It's really amazing how much information you can get from just a few drops of blood. And speaking of information, Healthy Sphere mentioned a couple of things about getting the most accurate readings.
Oh, absolutely. Accuracy is key with these things.
So what do we need to know?
Well, the first thing is to make sure you're using fresh test strips. Those things are pretty sensitive.
Okay, fresh test strips, got it.
And then it might seem obvious, but make sure you're following the instructions that come with your glucometer.
Right, every device might be a little different.
Exactly. And one last thing, try to keep your glucometer at a comfortable room temperature. Extreme temperatures can sometimes affect the readings.
Interesting. Makes sense that it's a sensitive piece of equipment.
It is. It's basically a mini lab in your pocket.
That's so wild. Okay, so we've covered the basics, but are there any, pro tips for those of us who want to take our glucometer game to the next level?
Well, once you get the hang of the basics, you can start exploring different types of glucometers. There are actually a lot of cool new ones on the market.
Like what? Tell me more.
Some of them have Bluetooth, so you can connect them to your phone and track your data over time. And some even have alarms that will remind you to check your blood sugar.
Oh, wow. That's super helpful. So it's worth doing a little research and finding one that fits your needs.
Totally. And here's another thing to think about. Humidity. Did you know that humidity can actually affect the readings?
Wait, really? Like the weather?
Yeah, if it's really humid, it can mess with the chemistry a little bit and throw off the readings.
Huh. I had no idea. So I guess that's something to keep in mind, especially if you live in a humid climate.
Definitely. It's just another little factor to be aware of.
I love that we can go from seeing something on TikTok to understanding the science behind it. It's like suddenly these everyday things become so much more interesting.
Absolutely. There's a whole world of science happening right under our noses.
I mean, who would have thought that something so small could give us so much control over our health? It's really empowering.
It is. And knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. And speaking of knowledge, a huge shout out to HealthySphere for inspiring this deep dive. They've got a ton of great resources on their website, so definitely check them out if you're interested in learning more. You can find a link in the show notes.
You're doing some really important work.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with something to ponder. What other everyday technologies rely on these kinds of fascinating scientific principles that we just take for granted?
That's a great question.
It really makes you think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next